Hello, my name is Joe, and welcome to my channel. It's been a while since I've made a video. I think, one, we were moving a lot of stuff around in the house, and this room was kind of a mess. This is where I like to make my videos, as opposed to with my laptop. I know I'm supposed to have a wall of books behind me, but this I don't want to leave my state-of-the-art YouTube video studio here. But I could do that. I could have gone, with my laptop upstairs in my little library with the books, but I like making videos here. Also, another thing I think with BookTube is since I don't read as much as other booktubers who constantly make videos, I do get kind of burnt out on reading events where you're supposed to read maybe 4 books in a month. I need variety when I read, and sometimes if I have a whole month where I'm reading 4 of the same genre, and then that leaves no room for me, I'll read generally about a book a week. January I've been reading faster than that, but generally about a book a week. It doesn't really leave too much room for anything else for me. So I think I just got kind of burnt out, and I just needed to take a break from BookTube events and just read what I want. I will say for me, I've read quite a bit in January. I've read about 10 or 11 books, which for me is a lot. And I wanted to make, I saw on BookTube that there was the Wasted Weekend, or GarbAugust 3.5, the Wasted Weekend 2025, a short BookTube event by Ollie from Criminale. And I thought that was perfect for me. I've recently read a lot of detective fiction. I've read Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett. I've read Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler. And I've read, so those are hardboiled detective novels on the kind of psycho killer side of the mystery umbrella genre. I've recently read Red Dragon by Thomas Harris, which I loved all 3 of those. And then I've also read some fantasy. I read Lord of the Rings recently. I've read a bunch of Conan. But I needed kind of a palate cleanser. So seeing, this Wasted Weekend event come up, it's just 1 book. That was perfect for me. I've got a lot of trashy horror novels. So what I wanted to pick was just a violent horror novel. That's what when I think of trashy, that's where my mind goes. I have a bunch of them sitting on my shelf, just sitting there, just waiting to be read as just palate cleansers in between, skipping from a big fantasy series or after I've read a big 1,000-page history book. So, without further ado, I've read for the Wasted Weekend, I read Edward Lee's Flesh Gothic. And this actually, this was a nice segue. I've read some detective novels, and some, mystery novels. And this kind of falls in under that. There is kind of there absolutely is a mystery element to this. So the premise is that there's this rich, very creepy rich guy who owns his own porno studio. And he has this big mansion, and he shoots. He has shoots pornography films in his mansion, and he often has these big giant orgies. And then one night during one of the orgies, there's a big satanic ritual, something of that nature, and about 13 or 14 of the orgy goers are brutally killed. And that's how the book starts, so that's not a spoiler or anything. And then the wife of the rich psycho, she hires a group of kind of mediums and paranormal investigators and a very skeptical reporter to go spend some nights in the house and investigate. And then she reveals to the reporter is kind of like her spy into the group. And she thinks that the husband is not quite dead. because they never I can't remember, they either never found his body, or the body that they found was not his. It doesn't really matter. So as you can imagine, this was, had a lot of sex, had a lot of violence, and that's what I was looking for. I wanted something very trashy. Again, for palate, this is a perfect palate cleanser for me. Very quick reading. For palate cleansers, to break up, me reading many books in a genre, or if I've read a big fantasy novel, I like to kind of rely on a quick, easy horror novel. Or science fiction novel. So this was perfect. I will say I've read a few. I'm not averse to reading something as extreme as a splatterpunk book. I've read a couple. I do kind of. I don't mind shocking myself. I find violence very disturbing and very frightening, and violence does disturb me. So I will read a violent book, just hoping that it will kind of scare me. I'll admit I was not let down by how extreme this wasn't, but I was expecting a little bit more. This is my first Edward Lee book. I've heard that he is kind of an extreme horror author, but I've also heard that for Edward Lee, this is more on the tame side. That being said, if you're not used to reading very violent books, this book is very grisly, especially that first chapter or the prologue, where you see the aftermath of the orgy that happens when all these people are just torn apart. So that's not to say that this isn't extremely violent. It is. It's just, I've read a couple splatterpunk books. I was expecting a little more. I mentioned there is I've recently read detective novels, so I did enjoy the mystery element to this. There is a private detective character who is a bit silly. He's intentionally written as silly, and he is not the main character. It's the reporter is the main character. The reporter is trying to solve the mystery. That being said, there is a lot of comedy in this. I mean, you're not meant to take it seriously. One of the demons that you meet has, minor spoiler here, it's not a big deal, has phallus fingers. I found that pretty ridiculous. And of course, there's just a general sense of this is all quite silly, and there's an unbelievability to it. The main, you're seeing the events through the reporter's eyes. He's a skeptic, and he just will roll his eyes when one of the medians just starts speaking about various ghost-like entities, just matter-of-factly. So there is a lot of comedy in this. The private detective character is pretty funny. It personally, for me, I would have enjoyed it, a more serious take on a story like this. Something along the lines of, say, Shirley Jackson's Haunting of Hill House. I've read that a long, long time ago. Also, a book like this is going to remind you of Richard Matheson's Hell House, another book I read a long, long time ago. So it's along those lines. So if you like kind of things with a mystery element, and you like a big, people in a haunted house doing an investigation, and there's an element of mystery to it, and you want something trashy, I mean, you'll enjoy this. I will say there was one element at the finale of kind of the not action-packed finale, but there's a moment at the end where, without getting into too big of a spoiler, there's a moment at the end where a death happens, sort of as an accident. Was it an accident? Was it not an accident? It's clear when you're reading the answer to that question. And when it's about to happen, it's telegraphed kind of right before the death happens. You know what's about to happen. I will say this kind of accident happens. The character dies. There's at least one bystander involved who you don't really read about, but you know that bystander must have been involved. And then the scene just kind of skips like, okay, so anyway, And again, I know that's maybe a small thing to nitpick to nitpick in a book like this, but it kind of bothered me in the finale of the novel that something just made me go, in the action, made me go, wait a minute, well, what happened next? You kind of left that scene a little early. It'd be one thing if that scene happens and then a long time passes for the main character after they witness this, and it's kind of vague about what happened. That would be okay, if that makes sense. But this literally, main character sees a death, the situation is not over, but then we immediately cut to like the next immediate scene, and it just kind of made me scratch my head. So again, I'm maybe that's silly to focus in on a detail like that, but it really kind of hurt the ending for me, and it made me go, okay, well, this really wasn't that good. But it was kind of a fun read overall. So again, if you want something trashy and you like the idea of a big haunted house thing, you would probably enjoy this. Moving forward, I don't know how frequently I'm going to make videos, but I thought I'd make one and throw it up. If there's in the future, I think with BookTube events, I will probably, say for June on the Range again, maybe I'll just read one Western and just leave it at that. But anyway, I had fun with The Wasted Weekend, and that's all for now. Thank you.